After Tuesday's sensational play-in win over the Miami Heat in overtime, the Hornets are 48 basketball minutes away from their first playoff appearance in a decade. This after a 4-14 start. We're going to talk about it here with our friend Walker Mail from Locked On Hornets. Walker, before we look ahead to Friday's game against Orlando, I mean, how iconic was that game when you look at Hornets postseason? It's not playoffs, but it is postseason history. Where does it stack up?
It might be the best game that the Hornets have played, certainly in the second iteration of the franchise's history. I did this because I went full nerd Hornets fan, went back through all of the games that might measure up. I think it has to match a couple of different criteria points. I think one, has to be a postseason game in some way, shape, or form, just because the stakes are there with postseason games. I think you have to win, because I'm sure Miami doesn't feel like that was the best game in their franchise's history. I think it has to match both of those. I think it has to come down to the wire. Those are a few points I think it has to reach. So the games that I came up with just overall, the 93 playoff series against Boston, game 4, Alonzo Mourning hits the shot, the most notable shot in Hornets history, to basically end the Celtics dynasty as we knew it. McHale, Parrish were some holdovers there. So that probably still is above what we saw the other night. There was actually a game 2 in that series that was absolutely bonkers in 1993, where it was double overtime. Crazy, crazy game. The Hornets actually win in Boston. So you have those 2 games. You have the game 10 years ago when they played game 5 in Miami. Courtney Lee hits a game-winning three-pointer. Kemba Walker has the game-saving block in the corner against Goran Dragic. So those are a few games to mention. Game 1, Orlando 0-2. That's a big one. So all that to say, we can mention it. Yeah, I was trying to figure out, I didn't want to be too hyperbolic. Was this the best game that the Hornets have ever played in all of franchise history? And it's pretty close, Nick. If it's not number 1, it's in the top 3 somewhere in my eyes.
Now, I mean, it is just a play-in game, and those other games you mentioned are really all playoff games and within series, and Zoe's shot deciding the biggest really series victory in Charlotte Hornets history. But is it more so important because of where this team has been, or really not been, for the last 10 years?
1,000%. So, okay, if you're balancing everything on the teeter-totter and you have playoff games on one side that matter more than play-in games, I'm not here to argue that. I believe that to be true. What could start to balance the scales a little bit is if off the other side, compared to where the playoff wins are, you could say, okay, the Hornets beat the Heat, a rival that has been pretty one-sided this entire time. So getting over the Miami Heat in this game, I think that matters. But also going to overtime and having 2 shots in one, where you have the LaMelo game winner and you have the game tying incredible corner 3 from Kobe. And Nick, just the game overall, going back and forth, there were, 3-4 times where you felt like, okay, it's over for the Hornets, or there were 3-4 times where you felt like, okay, finally dodged a bullet there, it's over for the Heat. And you can never be too sure about anything until there were 0 seconds, not 0.1, nothing, until we got zeros on the shot clock and the game clock. That's the only way that you could feel comfortable with an actual victory, with the Hornets actually advancing to play the loser of the 7-8 matchup, which it would turn out to be the Orlando Magic. So, yeah, I think if you're looking to balance the scales or maybe even tip it in the favor of what happened on Tuesday night, those are a couple of ways that you would counter the playoff wins that the Hornets have had previously.
One more win to go grab, and we're going to talk about that matchup with the Magic shortly. But I still, I still am having a hard time processing and getting over this game for the Hornets and that shot that you mentioned by Kobe White. How memorable will that shot be for years to come? I mean, it could be enhanced if it, helped ultimately propel them to the playoffs.
Yeah, we asked today on Weston Walker and talking about it on Locked On Hornets too, like, do you have to capitalize off that win with another win against Orlando? Or is it a little like what North Carolina did a few years back when they beat the Duke Blue Devils in the Final Four, but then they lost the championship game? Like, okay, takes a little bit of the sting out of what happened with that Heels team. Would it do the same here? And I ultimately think this about both the Heels example and what the Hornets are possibly looking at. I don't think so. I don't think you can erase all the vibes in the city, what happened on Tuesday night with the loss to Orlando. A lot of it's going to depend on how it looks. We all have to figure out what happened to get whatever result comes Friday night. But I don't think it's going to erase all of that. I think you would love to see them continue to march on somehow, some way. But I still think the vibes are immaculate with what this team was able to accomplish, and it matters. And you're right. Like the support we saw at the Hive, where it was an attendance record, it was loud on every single made bucket. I don't think you can erase all of that. And you can't erase the good of what Kobe White has provided, especially in the second half, especially with what he did towards the end to tie that ball game up. I think it was incredible.
We may dive into some LaMelo discourse, local LaMelo discourse, which I believe is different than national LaMelo discourse. But
less toxic.
I do just want to talk about his play to win the game. Miles Bridges said that showed his maturity on the court. What did you think of the way LaMelo got downhill there? It wasn't his most efficient night, but we've seen it time and time again. A Hornet doesn't get a call. A Hornet doesn't make the layup. I mean, I can't tell you how many times Kemba went to the rack to try to win a game, and it just didn't work out. Seeing that player do that in that moment, what did that signal to you?
Are you sure he didn't put an I and an M in front of maturity like everybody nationally is doing with LaMelo? Are you sure it was mature? It showed his maturity? I've heard so much to the contrary here. And look, there are plenty of valid points to the opposite side of maturity. I get it. I agree with Miles. I do think that LaMelo, after making a terrible pass and almost costing the team the game when he was trying to hit Sion, crossed half court, and it goes right to the Miami Heat, and then compounding that mistake by fouling Tyler Hero, not giving him a landing zone, that was brutal. Brutal stretch. LaMelo mentioned it after the game. He's using words I can't use here, but he did mention it, how he almost...
Not unless you want to pick up a $25,000 fine, Walker.
I'm good.
We're not going to be able to pick that one up.
Gonna hurt me a little more than LaMelo unless you want to spare some change on that. I will say LaMelo mentioned it, that he almost messed the game up. That happened. And then in order to counter that, he was able to curl off of Jaime Jaquez for the game winner, doing something that we've asked him to do more, which I found interesting, because usually you're seeing him shoot a lot of threes. Shot a lot in this game with 16 attempts from behind the line, and yet here he is with a couple of crucial buckets going against Davion Mitchell, who's playing unbelievable point-of-attack defense on him, getting up in his jersey. And then Jaquez, who basically got caught off guard. I think you just expect some rest. And I really mean maybe even a millisecond of rest upon catching the basketball from the inbounds pass. But LaMelo, he's been so good at it all year long. He catches the basketball on the run to force the defense in this indecision-making process. You have to react now. And Jaquez didn't, and it was just enough time for LaMelo to get to the rack, finish at the cup, got fouled, in my opinion, wasn't called, whatever, they win the game anyway. I do believe Miles was right in that play, after maybe a couple of immature plays, it did show the maturity to bounce back.
All right, much more looking ahead to this matchup with the Magic with our guy Walker Mail from Locked On Hornets coming up. All right, more with Walker Mail from Locked On Hornets. Now we're looking ahead to Friday night's win and in, lose or go home, play-in matchup in Orlando against the Magic. Walker, it seemed to me heading into that Heat game Tuesday, that presented the bigger challenge to the Hornets, X's and O's wise, personnel wise, coaching wise, historically, mentally, than anything they were going to face on Friday. It's like they almost beat the bad guy, and now it does look like an easier path. But what do you think initially of this game against the Magic?
I agree with you. Now, what's interesting is, in talking with some Heat people, a part of the Locked On podcast network, it was interesting coming into that game. They discussed how the vibes weren't great, that there's almost this superiority complex with the Miami Heat, and that they're not supposed to be in the play-in. They're not supposed to be hitting the road to play a play-in game. If anything, we got to host it, and that wasn't the case, being the last team in the play-in tournament. And so they didn't want to be there, so to speak. Even with that being true, you still have Eric Spoelstra. We've still seen the Miami Heat use that play-in tournament to parlay that into a playoff appearance, and then upset a one seed. It's the Miami Heat. They're the playoff zombies. We've seen them do that before, so they're very, very scary. And all of that you said is true. You compare that to Orlando. The similarity is that the vibes aren't great. The difference is Orlando does not have the history that the Miami Heat have. They don't have the coach. They don't have all that stuff that you just talked about. They don't have it all. It seems like there's some dysfunction. We've seen some rumors that their star player in Paolo Banchero is not getting along with their head coach and Jamal Mosley. The Orlando Magic offense, it has not been a top 16 unit, I believe, in more than a decade's worth of time, which is a baffling stat. We're not talking about top 10. We're talking about just being a top 15 offense once in the last 10 to 15 years. Can you do it once? And they can't. So Orlando is where offense goes to die every single year. They didn't even reach the century mark in this play-in game. Only scored 97, and it was somewhat close with Philly until the 76ers pulled ahead. But it's not great with the star players not agreeing with the coach. And you've even seen some former players who've turned commentator say that the chemistry doesn't look great between the players on the roster, that they're not huddling up as much as you would like to see them. And again, they just have some real issues, even with their star player, who I love, Paolo Banchero. I think he's an absolute tank that can handle the rock and has some point guard skills. Man, the three-point shooting continues to get worse. And now we're seeing some Ben Simmons-like qualities in that he's not shooting from the outside. If he doesn't get to the foul line and he doesn't score in the paint, then you've already done your job. And outside of his passing, there's not a lot of other ways he can beat you. I like Desmond Bane. I like Jalen Suggs. They have talent. They can absolutely win in a one-and-done scenario in the NBA. So you can't underestimate the opponent. But I'll say this, it's the opponent I'd rather face. It was Orlando, who I wanted the Hornets to face the entire time, being a Charlotte Hornets fan. They got it. We'll see if they're able to capitalize off of some of that dysfunction we see in Orlando, because Charlotte, their chemistry is phenomenal, as we've seen it all year long.
Yeah, I asked Charles Lee today how much of that energy he wants to see his team carry from Tuesday into Friday, and he said confidence. And back to my original point to start this segment, I mean, doesn't that win over Miami and now facing a team you've beat by an average of 15 the last 3 games, the only loss to Orlando, that was not the same Charlotte Hornets team we've seen for the last 4 months. That was very early in the season. I mean, how confident are you that the Hornets are truly 48 minutes from a playoff spot?
Look, I mean, we have PTSD around here. It's hard not to remember all of those painful moments, but this is not the same team that has provided us those painful moments in years past. It has been 10 years since they reached the postseason. People have heard that time and time again, but there has been a lot of unfortunate basketball in the 10 years that have passed. So, yeah, okay, we still have that a part of it. But to your point, I think you can feel as confident in this group as you possibly could, because they're the better basketball team, straight up. Since 2026, the Hornets, since the turn of the calendar, the Hornets have been number 1 offense in the NBA and the number 5 defense in the league. They finished, I think, 5th overall in offense and 11th overall in defense. But we're talking about a significant sample. We're not talking about, just a fun month of Hornets basketball. No, we're talking about over a half a year's worth of real, legitimate, one of the best NBA teams that there are in the league basketball that we've seen from this Hornet squad. So they're the better team, right? Anything can happen in a one-and-done scenario. At the same time, the most confident you can feel is by being sure you have the better basketball team. And I do feel that. I feel very comfortable saying that Charlotte is the better basketball team heading into this game.
All right. How concerning is 18 for 56 from outside at home Tuesday? And diving deeper, how concerned are you about Con Knipple, his most recent down game, 0 for 6, 2 of 12 from the field, and best three-point shooter in the league, not even being put in when they needed a 3 in crunch time?
Want him to shoot better. Orlando doesn't shoot it well outside of Desmond Bane. So, okay, you can probably get by against Orlando without having a great shooting night. If you could do it against Miami, where Miami also over the last month of the NBA season had a great offense and you were still able to keep pace and then eventually beat them despite not shooting very well from deep, then you have to feel great about your chances to win against Orlando without shooting well. At the same time, you're not going to be able to beat Detroit if you take care of business against the Magic. You're not going to be able to really give them all that much of a series, in my opinion. if you don't hit a lot of threes. That's been their bread and butter. We've seen Charles Lee take that from the Boston regime with his 1 year there under Joe Mazzulla and apply it here to Charlotte, where they have a lot of shooters. They drafted one in Con Knipple, as you mentioned. They went out and got one at the trade deadline in Kobe White, and they already had some at home with what LaMelo can do and with what Brandon Miller certainly has done over the last half of the year, shooting above 40% from three. So I think they can still do it. But the Con stuff, I hate it for Con because I know he wanted to show out in a play-in game and it just wasn't there for him. Still played a lot of minutes, but could not hit a three. And they tried to get him going downhill off of some screens to see some two balls go in, and they did, but the three ball just never happened for him. And I thought it was the right decision from Charles Lee to keep Kobe White in the game, as you saw on a couple of different instances. But I did ask Miles Bridges after that game, hey, as somebody that is called the leader of this squad, the longest tenured Hornets player, is there a message that's necessary for Con? Are you going to take him to the side and talk to him a little bit after a rough performance and a clear benching where everybody saw it and there's no hiding from it? They kept Kobe in the game in closing time of regulation and in overtime. Do you say anything to him about it? He said, yeah, I'll talk to him about it, but he's a rookie. He's fine. He has all the confidence in the world, and I have no doubt that he's going to bounce back. And I think that's how we've viewed him all year long. It's almost like we've talked about it a ton where we don't see a lot of emotion from him. And while we want him to celebrate all these individual accolades, where we want to see the emotion, we want to see, yeah, man, this is really cool. I want him to celebrate all of that. This is the part where the no emotion is a benefit. Where, okay, hey, man, that's last game. We move on. And with that kind of shooting acumen that he brings to the table, it's only a matter of time before he gets hot from deep again.
All right, I'm going to take my best crack at a radio tease. You're the master. When we come back with Walker Mail, what's keeping him up tonight worrying about the Magic and this matchup tomorrow? We'll be right back. Back here with Locked On Hornets host Walker Mail. Walker, asked you before the break, what is keeping you up tonight if there's anything you're worried about with this matchup against the Magic?
That the Orlando Magic will have listened to this interview before the game, that they will have listened to Amon Shumpert on ESPN question their chemistry, that they'll have listened to everybody that watches the NBA that says that is a dysfunctional franchise right now, that the star players that they have on their squad in Desmond Bane and Paolo Banchero, all of the assets they gave up to go get Desmond Bane, by the way, like that's a trade. When you go get Bane and give up 4 first-round picks, you're not looking to play in the play-in. Like you're looking to host a playoff series outright, not get the 7 seed, 8 seed in the Eastern Conference playoff race. That they're listening to all of that and they're being galvanized by it. And they're saying, hey, let's put our differences aside. Hey, Coach Mosley, look, I know we haven't seen eye to eye, but let's put this to the side and let's somehow, some way get a dub for the city of Orlando and parlay this into a playoff series against the Detroit Pistons. I want zero bulletin board material for this squad. And the other thing, just from a basketball standpoint, they are big, man. Like they've got a lot of big dudes all across the board. One of the shorter players they have on the court is Desmond Bane, but his biceps, if he lays it on the court, is probably as tall as Con Knipple. So strong guy out there in the backcourt. Jalen Suggs is tenacious defensively. And that's before you get to the front court where you're not talking about anybody shorter than 6'9". Now, Franz Wagner did have an injury in this last game against Philadelphia. I guess we don't know the status specifically with him. I didn't see that coming into this. So I guess we'll figure out if one of their all-star players isn't suiting up. That is certainly a benefit for the Hornets. But, yeah, they're big. They're physical. They have talent. That people thought that they were going to be a top 5 seed coming into this year. So I'm worried about the physicality. I'm worried about them being galvanized by the narrative against them. But, again, I do think the Hornets are a better basketball team. So we'll see if it looks like that come Friday.
Walker, regarding this Hornets turnaround this year, I mean, we've all tried to pinpoint when did this team figure out how to play defense finally? When did they become one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league? When did they become one of the healthiest teams in the league, knock on wood? I mean, LaMelo playing 70 games, Con missing 1, Sion James, a rookie, playing 82, Brandon overcoming some early injuries. I want to know from you, when did this become a squad that doesn't look too far ahead, understands what's right in front of it, and goes out and executes? Because that's, to me, has been one of the most impressive parts of this last 4 months.
Well, you brought up health. I think that's huge. They I mentioned this a million times at the beginning of the season. Their goal was to see this team play basketball. It seems like it shouldn't be that hard to do, but that goal has eluded them the last 3 years, and that's not hyperbolic. They could not get LaMelo on the floor. They couldn't keep Brandon on the floor when LaMelo was healthy, and there were even some injuries to other key role players along the way. We're talking about Josh Green, not this season, but last year, being the guy that I believe played the second most amount of games and minutes, and now he's like your eighth guy off of the bench, but he was the guy that played the second most amount all year long, was an over 20-minute-a-game guy. And so now that everybody is playing their right role, what do you know? They're playing better basketball. We brought Josh Green into the Queen City to be a 3-and-D wing that gives you 15 minutes a game, not somebody that we need to score 13 a game and play close to 30 minutes. No. Now you go back to the bench role. Sion helps you with that, having hit on a couple of second-round picks. But it's the health, seeing everybody on the court at the same time, that really turned the season around. And I know you kind of want me to say it, Nick. I know you want me to bring them up. You want me to bring up the Moose. I'll go ahead and throw up the Antlers.
Yeah.
I know you do. December 23rd is when Moussa Diabate entered the starting lineup. And it was because of a Ryan Kalkbrenner injury, but Moussa had already been showcasing that he is a unique center in this league and that nobody can match his tenacity. He goes after every rebound. I've joked about putting him in a straitjacket and he would still find a way to get double-digit rebounds with no arms, with no use of his arms. He's that crazy. And we've seen since December 23rd, almost right there at the January 1st mark that we've used to illustrate how great this team has been. It's been huge. He has been playing 30 minutes a game. They can switch up top defensively. They'll just leave their center on the best players in the league. They'll just say straight up, ISO, hey, Moussa, you got Luka? Cool, because we got to take care of everybody else on the court. You got Jalen Brunson. You're going to go ahead and guard Tyler Hero for a little bit. All of the best offensive players, they'll just leave Moussa on the perimeter every once in a while, and he's such a great rebounder. I think Moussa's presence on this team and everybody's buy-in to team defense, that goes into what you're talking about with seeing a real switch flipped the rest of the way.
All right, here is the NBA universe for the last 48 hours talking about LaMelo Ball. First of all, the NBA handing out hefty suspensions for both his flagrant 2 foul upgrade from the Bam Adebayo play and also his curse to Prime Video after the game. I think everybody was cursing at Prime Video for the technical difficulties, but certainly not on Prime Video. That one aside, first of all, are you relieved? Like, it's Charlotte sports, man. Like I thought it was a leap to go from a non-call to a suspension, but it's Charlotte sports. It's the NBA. Yeah. You never know what they're gonna dole out to the Hornets. Are you relieved?
Yeah, I'm definitely relieved. I didn't think it was going to happen. I didn't think that there was going to be a suspension that came in on LaMelo, but I was definitely worried about it. With no LaMelo against Orlando, it gets that much more dicey. I still think the Hornets could beat Orlando without Melo, but it would be really, really tough. He's been so important to this team really the last few years. It's why you've seen, I think, a losing basketball team because of his lack of health. When he's not on the court, you're just worse. He's such a savant offensively. He sees things that others don't. He's a warlock. He knows exactly where you're going to be. And the fact that he's so tall that he can make every pass that he sees, unlike some of the other point guards that they might visualize it, but they can't make it because they're not 6'7", and they don't have the wingspan that LaMelo does. So he can hit everybody anywhere at any time. So he matters a ton. So I'm glad that he's not suspended. Did I think it was going to happen? I did not. I understand everything Eric Spoelstra had to say. I actually have zero issue with anything he said post-game because, one, he's taken up for his guy. Totally understand that. He can think that there should be an ejection. I don't have an issue with it. I don't agree with it, but I don't have an issue with the way that he felt about it. And he did say that it was the Hornets playing. It was the way that the Hornets played that won the game. It wasn't because Bam Adebayo didn't play. He didn't try to provide any excuses. I thought that was refreshing. Ultimately, what happened was the officials missed a call, flat out. Should have been a flagrant on LaMelo immediately. LaMelo can't grab Bam Adebayo's ankles the way that he did. full stop, can't do that. I don't think the way that you handle that is by going back and saying, yeah, we need to eject him for the next game because that happened. I do not think that reached a particular mark of egregiousness to me. I think that what happened is you see LaMelo grab for him. Okay, bam, falls. You assess the flagrant in real time, and then you allow Miami to benefit from the free throws and possession. But I don't think you suspend him for this next play-in game. And the NBA didn't do that. They went back. They assessed him a flagrant 2. They fined him. And I thought it was all appropriate. I thought all of that was appropriate. We move on, and we play basketball. So I thought the NBA handled it the right way.
All right, the "we move on" part may need to be distributed to others in the NBA media landscape, but we certainly are here. LaMelo is playing. The Hornets are playing at Orlando, win and into the playoffs for the first time in a decade. Wouldn't want to talk about it with anybody else but Walker Mail from Locked On Hornets. Thanks, Walker.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.